Okay. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Um,
Good evening.
so, thank you so much for joining us. I can see about 3 people that are online right now. Thank you so much. I can see about 3 people that are
Good evening, bro.
online
You
right
all?
now.
Good evening, bro. You all?
Yeah, good evening. I have one discussant that is having some issues connecting. His device is not connected. One discussant that is having some issues connecting. His device is not connected. For the discussants, please ensure that your YouTube is either switched off or it's muted. Or it's muted. Because once you have your YouTube on, we'll have some interferences. So we need to have it out. Once you have your YouTube on, we'll have some interferences. So we need to have it out. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us during this little conversation regarding. Thank you so much for joining us during this little conversation regarding. Yeah, Kuku, can you assure me that your YouTube is not on? Can you assure me that
No, I just unmuted to speak to you now.
No, YouTube. Ensure that YouTube is off.
No, it's off. My YouTube is off. Yeah.
Oh, great. Ensure that YouTube is off.
No, it's off.
Oh,
My
okay.
YouTube is off.
Okay. Oh, great. That's great. Okay. Okay. Oh, I am the culprit. I'm the culprit. So I'm fine. I'm fine now. I am the culprit. Okay. I'm the culprit. We have a few people online. Okay. We have a few people online. So today we are going to have a discussion about national interest and also its security and security interest and also its security and defense mechanism. I still have some echo. Defense mechanism. I still have some echo. I still have some echo. I still have some echo. Dr. Suleiman. Dr. Suleiman. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good evening,
Please
sir.
ensure that you are not on YouTube.
Good evening, doctor.
Good evening, sir. Please ensure that you are not on YouTube. Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that's fine. So okay, that's fine. So good evening, our listeners, and thank you so much for so far.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Our inadequacies within these few minutes of starting.
Okay, it's okay now. Okay, it's okay now.
Okay, today we are going to discuss national interest as it regards Nigeria as a country.
Hello?
We're going to discuss national interest as it regards Nigeria as a country.
Hello?
I still have an echo. I still have an echo. I still have an echo. Can you hear me now? Are we good now? I'm very sorry about this technical issues. So today we're going to talk about Nigeria's national interest and how it relates to its security and defense mechanism. At this moment, I have I'm supposed to have about 4 participants. One is Mr. Julius An Asabe, who has masters in public relations. He has also a master's in security and strategic studies, and also he's currently pursuing a doctorate degree in security and strategic studies. He's the participant. He's one of the participants, and I chose to introduce him as the first person. Second person that is discussant here is Mr. Suleiman, Dr. Suleiman Abdullahi. He has a PhD in, he's currently working on a PhD in security and strategic studies. He has an MPhil, a Master in Philosophy in Leadership and Security Studies. He also has a Master's in Development Studies. He also has a postgraduate diploma in journalism. He has a Master's in International Affairs and Strategic Studies. And he has a postgraduate diploma in Public Policy and Administration. I also have online Mr. Ibrahim Murtala Kuku, sorry. Ibrahim Murtala Kuku, who has a master's in public administration. He has an MSc in strategic supply chain management. He has a postgraduate diploma in leadership at the Emeritus Institute of Management in Singapore. He also has a master's in public health. He's currently doing a PhD in defense and strategic studies. We have 2 other people that are, one other person that is going to join us, which is Mr. Aminu Ibrahim, who is currently not online, is having some issues joining. We also are having Julius, who is also having some issues joining. However, we're going to start while they find a way to resolve the security studies. Their connection status. So I'm going to start with a little introduction. Nigeria has been inundated with a lot of security issues across the borders within the ECOWAS sub-region. We have had security breaches that are due to issues in the Libyan war, which has been very responsible for the increase in the arms and ammunition of terrorist groups like Boko Haram. We also have issues with within the West African sub-region, where we have issues with arms proliferation. We have smuggling of arms, small arms and light weapons across the borders, which have contributed a lot in the security situation within Nigeria. What we are going to talk about today is the defense of Nigeria, the security situation in Nigeria, and also how do we create, or what do we know about the national interest, and how do we create that national interest that is going to be beneficial to a country like Nigeria. So I have Aminu Ibrahim already online, who is going to join us in this discussion. So Aminu, even though you're coming as the last person, I'm going to take you as the first. So please, what is it about a nation? What really is a nation? I've come across concepts like nation, a nation state, and so on. And I think a lot of people don't really understand the concept of a nation and a nation state. What really is a nation, and how do we differentiate it from a nation state?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Datton. I have some technical hitches. We started from one of the issues we are going to be extreme in the course of our discussions, which is our national interest vis-a-vis security and our defense mechanism, and all these things boil down to some of our ability not to progress technologically and otherwise. But let me restrict myself to your question. I want to start by apologizing for joining late, but we'll go quickly to the issues of the day. These are two concepts: the concept of a nation state and a nation. They are concepts that they are very confusing, actually. People misunderstand one. They think they are synonymous. That you can use a nation is the same thing with a nation state. But academically, a nation state is people, as in a sovereign territory with one group of individuals who share common history. If the concept of a nation state academically, I don't think, if you go by the definition of a nation state academically, I don't think we have any nation state in the world, because virtually every nation state, with every territory you have now, you have different set of people cohabiting or inhibiting those spaces. But the real concept in the academics means the sovereign territory that is inhibited by people that have common descent, they have common history, culture, and everything. That is what, while a nation state is having one large people. It could be a family if it's large enough. It could be a community if it's large enough. It could be a tribe if it's large enough, that are united by one common descent, history, culture, or language, inhabiting a particular territory. You see, that one, the nation state is a sovereign entity, while this is, it's limited to a people. It could be a tribe that have common descent, common history, common culture, and language, that they are inhibiting a particular space. That space could be within a sovereign territory. That is, the space they are inhibiting could be within a nation state. For instance, you can say the Yoruba nation. Yoruba nation are a group of people that have those common characteristics I outlined, but they are they are living within a nation state called Nigeria. Though, like I said, Nigeria doesn't satisfy the academic definition of a nation state. But however, in the context that we find ourselves, we can call it a nation state. So a nation state is like the universal set, while a state, a nation, is a subset of that universal set called a nation state. Thank you very much, Mr. Datu. Hello? Hello?
Sorry. I was
You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much for your explanation, detailed explanation. I'm just trying to do a recap. So what you are saying is that we have there's a difference between a nation and a nation state. A nation state just defined really by a territory and a government, while a nation is more of a connection between people that have a certain common history, who identify themselves as one.
That's
right.
Correct. That's correct.
So that from what you are saying, it looks like a nation state is more closely knitted than a nation, because they have more common relationship within themselves. Within Nigeria, for example, we have a nation state that bound us together, which is which we are defined by the boundaries within Nigeria.
Yeah.
However, it looks like we don't really have a common thought, a common
Yes,
history, an agreement on a common history of what we are and what we should be.
We don't satisfy the necessary and sufficient condition academically to be called a nation state. Because
to be called a nation, rather. So we're a nation state.
A nation state. A nation state is a sovereign territory that also have commonalities, a lot of things in common. You see, we don't have that. Yes, we satisfy we are a sovereign territory. Agreed. But a lot of things, we don't have a lot of things in common. But you see, within the Nigeria, since we satisfy the necessary but not sufficient condition academically to be called a nation state, given within the necessary condition, now you have nations within our nation state. You have the Yoruba nations, you have the Hausa nation, you have the Igala nations, you have other nations.
Okay, so let me go to another person see
if I may contribute. Yes.
Yeah. So Ibrahim Kuku, can you just help to contribute?
Just a little contribution. Yeah, just a little contribution to contextualize within the concept, as he has rightly described, nation and nation state. A nation state, so to say, the coming together of different political entities or regions, with different cultural backgrounds, from where they derive their political legitimacy to rule themselves and also to have a status of a sovereign state. So he is right. When you have different nations coming together, they form a nation state. So Nigeria is actually a nation state. in this very context. As you rightly observed, the concept is still debated, the definition is still debated. So for this context, we have to provide a context to our listeners so that they will get to where we are moving from. So there are school of thought that talked about whether a nation comes first or nation state comes first, or whether the nation state is actually a modern state or an ancient state. So scholars debate, and it's still ongoing. So, but irrespective of whatever happened, what creates a state, there are two different, there are theoretical thoughts in the academic literature that talk about it. One, there is the declarative theory of statehood, which by international law, it meets the criteria of having a defined territory or having a permanent population. I have an existing government and also have the capacity to have a relation with other nations. That is the declarative theory of a statehood. Then you also have the constitutive theory statehood academically that has been actually forwarded or posited by a lot of scholars. This one actually defines a nation state by international law, that if and only if it is recognized as a sovereign state by other states. So these are the two theories that is governing nation state or nation state. But nation,
so
of
a
course,
nation state needs to be recognized by other states.
By other states.
While
that's
a nation
yeah.
does not really need to be recognized by other states as nations. So, as like nations, the Yoruba nation may not be recognized by the United States of America or Germany or Russia as a nation state, as a nation. However, within themselves, they have some kind of shared vision, shared culture, and so on. So they may not need to be recognized. However, they have that common background, common history, and the likes of it. So, do you think that Nigeria should be or should transform to be a nation? Because from the description you've made so far, Nigeria is a nation state that may have been created based on the boundaries that we have. However, we need to have a common vision that will bind all the small nations within the nation state, so that we can have a collective vision, a collective objective. So do you think, first of all, do you think Nigeria is a nation? And then do you think we need to build a nation within the Nigerian nation state?
No, you do not necessarily need to build a nation because of diversity. Diversity is allowed in anywhere in the world. Diversity means that people are peculiar. We have more than 250 ethnic groups in Nigeria. It is difficult to have homogenize every culture into one, but you can have a national identity. So having a national identity will now create that nation in that sense, as we are trying to say. But as we are, we all need to have a policy and system. I think in further discussions, when we look at the interest groups, the various diversity where Nigeria's interest lies, we'll look at some of these ramifications from there. But at the moment, for the sake of this clarification of what a nation is from a nation state, for this question, I think it's be good so that we don't overflow it for now. But when we go forward, we'll take it over.
Yeah. So I have Julius Yakubu here. He had been having some technical issues connecting. Julius, are you online? Yeah, are you online? Hey, Julius. Oh, okay. He's still having some issues. Okay, so that's fine. So we have some clarity now on the concept of nation and also the nation state. So we want to now look at what national interest, because of the topic, Nigeria's national interest. So that was why we needed to actually discuss on what a nation is all about already, and then we can now look at the national interest. um, Ibrahim had just told us that we can create an identity that is ours. And maybe that sounds like an interest of a common people. So what really is national interest? I don't know, Julius, are you online? Is Julius online?
Yeah, I'm online with you.
Oh, okay. Julius, you're online? Okay, maybe I'll go back to Ibrahim Aminu. What really is this national interest? What are we talking about? Why should we have a national interest? Why?
Yeah. We should have a national interest.
No, what is it first? What is it? What is a national interest?
Okay, national interests are all those, they are the compendiums of what a nation state stands to achieve, or what its objectives are in the international balance within itself, as it relates with itself and other nations. Because as no nation can operate in.
Oh, we lost him.
Okay. Let me pick up before he comes back.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So national interest, as it were, it's actually the collective aspirations of a people, their values and goals on which they stand to move on with the nation's development. You know, in terms of economic, in terms of political, in terms of social and cultural aspirations. So a nation must derive its interest from this collective needs of its citizens to be able to collect it right from territorial integrity in terms of national security, achieving food security, development, and meeting their aspiration and raising the GDP of a country and protecting the sovereign nation of that country. So that national interest must come from that shared aspirations of the citizens, the goals and objectives on which they stand to achieve. That's basically what national interest is. But as I said, they actually come in different forms, different ramifications. You could have national interest that could be as a result of territorial integrity, political, even scientific, social, cultural. All of them are there. And they are actually categorized into what we call national interest. You have strategic national interest and peripheral national interest. So these are very clear. They are derived from policy documents that government creates over time to make sure that people abide by them and live. I think this is just to contribute. If it's back.
Oh yeah, that's great. So to put it in perspective, what you said is that national interest is what we collectively want to really achieve. What is it that we really want to spend money on? What should we be concerned about? What should we even go for war?
Sorry, I'm back. I'm back. I think the network took.
Can anybody hear me there, please?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Ibrahim?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So just give me a minute. Let me get the views of Julius on national interest.
Okay.
What is national interest? We got some views from Ibrahim Kuku. So we want to get more views from you, Julius. So what is national interest? Kindly also adjust your camera so that we can see your face. Yeah, thank you.
Now. Can you hear me? Can you see my face?
We can hear you very clearly, yes.
Okay. National interest, as a matter of fact, scholars have said is a kind of vague concept. Vague in the sense that some leaders have used it in the past to justify some of their actions which have not been too palatable to the international community. Now you find out that when China had a border issue with India and the USSR in those days, they based it on national interest. The United States, sometime long ago, wanted to establish a nuclear base at Diego Garcia. They said it was national interest. As a matter of fact, Hitler, in his expansion, is out to expand the territory, pinned it down to national interest. So it is based on that people are beginning to say perhaps the issue of national interest is driven by nations the way they choose to. However, national interest, simply put, is the aspiration, goals, and ambition of a sovereign state. That is to say that it is not a sectional thing, it's a collective thing, a national projection as to what the nation wants to achieve. According to Magentau, it is a foreign policy which operates under the standard of anything national interest. In other words, he says the meaning of national interest is survival. I quote, he said, the protection of physical, political, cultural, and identity against encroachment by other states, unquote. However, we must not forget the political angle to this thing. We have seen of recent nations creating problems for others in order to gain access to their natural resources, especially energy resources. So these are issues that will be discussed when you talk about national interest. The foreign policy of a nation is formulated based on this national interest. In fact, the old nation will develop a foreign policy if it does not have a sound national interest, because that is what drives the national interest. That is what drives the foreign policy. And every nation ensures that the goals of this national interest are achieved. In fact, the behavior of nations are directed or conditioned or governed by this national interest. You can very well agree with me that if you know the national interest of a nation, you are sure to determine or estimate the behavior of that nation in an international forum, and also how that a nation will respond to certain international issues, because those are the way they respond to these issues are exactly followed by the laid down national interest. So
Yeah.
that is in a nutshell what I think the national interest is.
So I get what you said. It's actually that shared vision that we have together, which Kuku had said earlier. That shared vision. But what you said that is a bit different from what Kuku had said is that all people within a nation need to really understand that vision, that national interest, so that whatever it is that you are doing, be it education, be it information technology, be it defense, military, be it whatever you need to do, will be geared towards your national interest. That's the twist that I have seen from your own perspective in this,
And
that
no one
we need to, yeah.
No one individual develops a national interest, since it's a collective interest. It is not a sectional thing. It is a broad interest that covers the interest of every small nationality within a nation.
So in the context of Nigeria here, it looks like every nation within the nation state wants to bring up its own interest rather than building a collective interest for a nation state like Nigeria, so that all of us can actually work towards
this issue of diversity. And that is why that is where compromise comes in. If you manage your diversity very well, issue of compromise should be key. The essence is for you to arrive at a common ground. If we can manage our diversity properly, this should not be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue at all.
But at the moment, we don't seem to have that common goal, that common interest, that common aspiration, as you talked about. So,
Mr. Moderator, at this point, let me chip in something.
Yeah, Aminu, go ahead, please.
I was making my comment before the technology technically substituted me. But however, I'm back now. The issue is national interest, like everybody, Kuku have said, Mr. Julius have said, they're very correct. National interests are aggregations of those things, objective, a nation feels it will bring forth to negotiate at every level of whether diplomacy or when it is dealing with itself and other nations. But again, many scholars have argued that national interest in the long run, the summation of national interest in the long run tends towards becoming the leader's interest. It tends towards protecting the leader's interests. For instance, now, countries have gone to war. Nigeria went to Liberia and Sierra Leone. What was our achievement, or what is our achievement in those countries? When you ask those questions, you see people scratching their head. No definite answers can come out from there. Because at the end of the day, people will argue that the leaders that started that war were because of to achieve a personal goal and objective, not national interest. They are either friends, they are either argued or rumored to be friends of some of the leaders in that country. So they sent Nigerian contingent to protect their friendship. Some will say it's for the economic interests of those leaders at that time. That Liberia had a huge deposit of minerals like gold and other things. So people need to move in the guise of bringing stability to tap those natural resources, not for Nigerian interests, but for some leaders' interests. So you see, national interest in the long run tends towards satisfying leaders' interest. It is just the blueprint of what the leader at that point in time feel is interests that need to be protected.
Yeah. So they
Not,
what you're
not
saying.
necessarily, if I may come in.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So
If I may
let
come
me
in, yeah.
hold.
Let me, okay.
Cuckoo, just a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah.
Let me just recap what he said, and then we will come back to you. What Aminu is saying is that sometimes people misuse or misapply national interest to ensure that their regime or their persons, which is probably the president, his own personal ambitions are achieved, either that of his business enterprise, or the friend's business enterprise. So sometimes some nations, instead of following really a national interest, they follow interest of persons who want to perpetuate either their regime or their business enterprises. I think generally that is what he said. Kuku, you have a perspective on that. Please, can
Yeah,
you come?
know.
yeah, I have a perspective on this. Now, and he is right in one sense for the fact that that is the backside of national interest when leaders abused it. But if you look at the historical antecedents of why global national interests come to bear, they have to do with, you have to look at them from three broad domains. Number one, you have to look at the global environment, because there are a lot of things that have come with the emergence of new global security challenges like this: extremist, religious, terrorism, the menace of transactional organized crime, financial crimes, and the disruptive aspect of the social media. That is on the global, and you can also see the in place of globalization, where you have a lot of interconnectivity, interdependence between nations, and this brought about this global crimes becoming universal in scope. So that is on that. You have the regional environment where you have interest. A country has to be interested in the security of its neighbor in order to remain safe. You have that sporadic military intervention happening. If the neighbor is poor, there are likely going to be incidences of crisis. You are likely going to have violent conflicts and even transborder movement, drought and other things. We've seen when Lake Chad, they attacked us because of other things. The Guinea, have illegal oil bunkering, illegal fishing, and other things. So this is where interests come and policies are made. You also have to look at internally.
Can I
Internally, in terms of what you have on the ground, in terms of resources, that you have the population, you have what do you make of it? In terms of even the diaspora, nation building, because these are components where interests come in, then you build a nation out of this interest. You create your national policies to speak to these components. So, as he rightly said, the bad side of it is when leaders misuse them. But the reason why we have national interest is to actually look at these three broad domains to see how it affects your AU, and then domestic your security. Then your interest will come. The ultimate point of it is that national survival, economic prosperity. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So generally, what you're saying is that the perspective that Aminu took is that side where presidents or heads or leaders of countries or nation states use national interest based on their own personal requirements, personal gains. But what you're saying is that we can actually use build national interest and direct it in such a way that all of us can benefit from it. Yeah. Julius, you have some perspective that you want to add to this? I've been having some, connectivity issues with Suleiman. Suleiman has been going up, on and off, and he's not been able to say a word during this broadcast. So when he comes back, we'll give him an opportunity. Julius is out again. Okay, so I'll go. I think we've talked a lot about national interest, and I think we need to go to the next issue. So now, security appeared also in our topic. So what is this security? I know there are traditional views about security, and there are some contemporary views. Within the Cold War, we have a different perspective to security. And then after the Cold War, that's around at the fall of the USSR, countries have, redefined what security is all about. Aminu, can you give us a perspective on security? What is it? Many people look at security more as okay, somebody went to kill people in a village or in a school. Somebody is kidnapped and whatever. What really is security? Can you put that in perspective for us?
Okay, let me attempt to address your question. Security, like you said, is broad, and it's been viewed by many people differently. It depends. It depends on where you are looking at security from, where you find yourself, what somebody in Zamfara will call security is definitely know what somebody that lives in central area in Abuja will view security. Somebody in Abuja, central area, precisely in Abuja, will start telling you, if he's discussing security, he'll be discussing non-military threats. He'll be discussing human security. He'll be discussing the economy. These are the basis for non-military threats. Generally, security is a state of being safe from harm, from danger, and any threats. But as society grows, the concept of security tend to also change with the growth in and development in our society. Gone are the days, in some part of the country, yes, we have not passed. In developing world like ours, we look at security like all these insurgent, terror, kidnappers, terrorists, separatist agitations, and all these things. When you go to develop crimes, they look at health security, maritime security. They look at basically what concerns them, economic security, what is happening in the stock exchange market. How does the GDP affect your per capita income, standard of living of households? How are our country is borrowing too much, or our country is not attracting foreign direct investment? It becomes a security issue.
So,
For us,
what you're looking at is that there are basically like two aspects of security.
Yes.
One is
the military,
more of the one that you see normally, that people look at security. People steal everywhere. People shoot people.
yes.
Other people,
Because-
kidnapping everywhere and so on, as we have in the country now. However,
Yes.
what you're talking about is that we need to look at other perspectives of security,
Correct.
which includes how are people able to feed, which
Correct.
is food security? How are
Hunger,
people able to get
poverty.
jobs? And poverty. How is the economy? How are
Health.
people
We are talking
able
of
their
pandemics.
healthcare and so
the
on?
pandemics,
So we need to
epidemics.
expand the basis of our security beyond the surface, which is like the symptoms of the security of the nation. So if you see somebody doing kidnapping, probably there are some underlying human security issues that may be responsible for that. So I'll give Julius a chance to also give his perspective on security in this country or within a nation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As you know, security can be from insecurity can come from either internal or external. But broadly speaking, people look at security itself as a situation of being safe. When you talk of national security, it encompasses issues like if you can stop external aggression, if you can stop sabotage, subversion, espionage, and the rest of them. There are certain activities that come from external that are and internal that are injurious to the nation. So if you can ensure that those things do not get to a nation, then you have succeeded in securing that nation. And like the last speaker said, this security issue, if we follow the realist approach, which is what you were referring to as before and during the Cold War, it believed in the protection of the state, the survival of the state, anything to be done to ensure the survival of the state without giving much consideration for the people who made up the state. Now, scholars have come after the Cold War to say no, that it is the people that make up this nation. And as a matter of fact, most of these kinetic issues, that is military-related security issues, like we have in Nigeria, the Boko Haram, the banditry, and the rest of them, those are the ones that are military. Now, most of them are generated by the inadequate address of the non-military issues, like poverty, like environmental issues, like unemployment. So when you see this, people generally believe, scholars believe that if we can address these non-military issues, in fact, not only will the military reduce, nations will reduce their budget on military, and they will have the excess of these budgets to put in developmental issues. And when you do that, you are indirectly saying you are going to further address the non-kinetic security issues. So that is the perspective I look at it.
Yeah. So that's very fine. So from what you are saying, instead of Nigeria to put a lot of energy in kinetically fighting insecurity, we should look more on what human security is all about, and then see how we can deal with it. Issues of economy, issues of unemployment, and so on. That we should deal with those ones, and that may actually reduce the occurrences of all those issues. I'll go back to Kuku now. I would like to go back to Kuku. Okay.
Just 1 minute, please. As the case of Nigeria is now, it is not possible to jettison the operations going on now, because the essence is to bring the culprits to the table for negotiation. So you cannot jettison that. What we are saying is that as the kinetic is going on now, since we have found ourselves in this precarious situation, that government must also do all it can to address the non-kinetic issues. I mean, the non-military security issues. They should look for alternative ways of doing that. As a matter of fact, that is why, concerning this security issue, that is why, because of the new concept, that is why you have the new thinking. That is why you have the concept of human security and citizens-driven security system. The people, scholars are saying no, since it's all about the people, then you must concentrate on the people. Not only that, the people should be part of driving the security of the nation. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's like the citizens-driven security of or something. I think citizen-driven security something
model.
Like, yeah, security model. Ibrahim Kuku, recently Nigeria bought a Tucano jet. I think it's worth about 500 million US dollars. Do you think, in line with our discussion of today, do you think that was really a smart move? Or do you think that that kind of money could have been redirected towards something like agriculture, so that it will create more jobs, provide more food security, and so on? Do you think, based on our discussion so far?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. And I think I must say categorically that those Tucanos would not have come at a better time than now. If you look at the concept of security generally, it's all about diplomacy and deterrence. The fact that Nigeria have a Tucano is even enough to send signals to those who are thinking of even creating a problem. And if you look at in the global environment, as it were, and the regional tension, you know, we are surrounded by the Francophone countries, where you have Cameroon, Chad, you know, all coming in question, trying to take away what you have. You can see the problem of mineral resources in the northeast, all of them coming in. Just Tucano, they came at the time, and we have seen what it have done. So,
before you continue, I want to say that the threats to security of Nigeria emanating from our neighboring countries has actually drastically reduced over the period. The last time, I think around 1981 or so, we had an incursion from Chad, where President Buhari then, I think he fought them and pushed them out of Nigeria into the far into like 50 kilometers into Chad Republic. After that, the next one that we had was the Bakassi standoff between Nigeria and Cameroon, and that was since in the 90s. And in recent times, we don't have any national threat from emanating from these our neighboring countries.
Coco, before you react,
the region is one component.
Coco, before you react, let me correct him. You see, you made mention of realist perspective, idealist perspective of security, post-war scholars, post-Cold War and pre-Cold War, they have changed model. This incursions is no longer the physical incursion. They use proxies. They use what we call in the security parlance, we call it internal collaborators. They come here as, you said?
Saboteurs.
Yes. they use come here, recruit our people, give them training. Most of these insurgents in the northeast and wherever, they are trained in the Sahel, in Mali, in all these francophone countries. They bring them back. They come as machineries, as all these things. They know it's not like a state-sponsored incursion now, but the state.
Yeah. So they are non-state actors.
Yes,
I agree. They are non-state actors, even though they are incited by state actors.
They are fighting a national interest.
Yeah. So that's fine. But if you have a Tucano jet would you fight France, who is fighting a proxy war through, for example, I'm not saying it because I know, for example, maybe mercenaries from Chad, because the mercenaries are actually non-state state actors. So how are you going to fight France
Daton,
through
let me
the incursion
sorry,
of non-state
let me
actors?
come in here, Daton.
Okay, so Suleiman, for the first time I have you live. You've been having some issues with your technology all over. Now I'll get your perspective on this.
Has gone off again.
He's frozen.
Kuku just told you. Deterrence.
Yeah.
Knowing
okay. So we'll just wait. Yeah.
A country like France, knowing that we have a Tucano, we can protect ourselves. We tread with caution. That is deterrence. You understand?
Yeah. So given the multiplicity of issues that we have within the country, in the southeast you have the IPOB talking about secession. In the southwest you have the Yoruba Nation talking about secession. In the northeast we have Boko Haram. In the southwest you have in the northwest you have banditry. What do you think we need to bother about?
Kuku has not reacted. You know, I chipped in.
He chipped in.
So let's
that was why it's good that you have brought this dimension in this way. You remember I was talking to you earlier about the dimensions of even why we need to develop a national to have a national interest. You know, if you look at the domestic environment, there are a lot of things that we need to address to put to rest all this unrest. We know we have like a lot of natural resources. You know, there was one scholar that said development is security and security is development. Now, if we have been able to harness these mineral resources, we have been able to, you remember we have a large population, which a high population is actually constitutes an element of national power. So we have youths, in hundreds of them, we have these industries. We've not been able to harness this thing. If we have been able to do this effectively, we wouldn't need this Tucano. We may only need it for what? For deterrence, as we have said earlier. United States is a big, very big body. They have the largest arms in the world. It's because of deterrence, and they want to. So what you have said is very, very clear. Having this Tucano is very, very significant because of where we are today. Now, we have to treat security based on context and situation. There is a way you approach the militants in the Niger Delta, the ones in the IPOB, and also those in the Middle East. They have different dimensions. The military men will tell you that there are different strategies to address these components of security threats that are emanating from all over the country. But basically, the major deterrence, the major thing that will settle this thing is domestic potentials. How are we able to harness and having adequate leadership that we are supposed to go there? Because that will be the first thing. But the way it is now is going to be what? Infertility, efforts in futility, because one will erupt here, the other one, and our capacity is not enough to go around. So I don't know that if that has addressed this question.
Okay, so I think while discussing security, we also touched on defense, because we are now talking about deterrence from incursion from other nations. Okay, please.
Okay. You first of all asked a rhetorical question. You said, now that we have the Tucanos, can we fight France?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yes, correct.
Sorry? Okay.
Correct, yes.
Now, where I come from, they say if a father sends his child to cause mayhem on your farm, You beat the child in order to send a message to the father. Now, let the father now come out and say he's the one who sent the child. I don't know whether you are with me. Hello?
Yes, yes, yes.
We are listening.
Yeah. Now, let the father now come out and say, I was the one who sent my child to do that. Then the international community will rise up or a solution will be found. But I'm sure that France will not come out to say anything of such. Now, concerning the Picanos, Aminu has, in fact, succinctly addressed the issue. We have multifaceted challenges in this country. Deterrence is important, not only for our brothers who are causing problem within, but even for neighbors, our neighbors. These things serve as deterrence for within and outside. Now, why has Nigeria not been able, is facing this kind of multifaceted challenges? One is that we have not been able to drive a policy of national unity. We have not been able to put our acts together. Before, it is said that charity begins at home. And you look at these things, your people are your greatest resource. So if your people are not behind you, even in war, that war is going to have a problem. If your people are not behind you in driving economic policies or any other policy for that matter, it means you have fragmented policies here and there because of lack of support from your people. So unless we are able to harmonize these things, unless our resources, including our human resources, we are going to be faced with these problems over and over again. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for your perspective on that. The summary is that yes, we need to fight within the context of human security. However, we need also to be protective of external incursions. So while we work on the internal mechanisms that will create jobs, provide a better economy, we also need to work on our defense to protect incursions from other nations. So that's quite clear on that. So we were actually supposed to talk about defense, but somehow in discussing security, we also went into defense. So now this national interest, in your opinion, let me start from Julius. In your opinion,
yes,
can you give us one thing that we can consider while building our national interest to be communicated to everyone, so that all efforts should be directed towards towards that, all efforts will be directed towards that objective, so that we can achieve it from all angles? What will you say is in the front burner for you?
Now, let me say this. If you make a threat, you must have the all without to back it up. We have talked about deterrence now. If we are going to drive a national interest for Nigeria, we must be able to put the all without together in order to drive that national interest. That is the premise I want to lay first. Because you cannot confront your national, you cannot put in a national interest in your foreign policy, and you are not driving the policy to achieve that national interest. So the first thing that will come to mind is our economic interest. That will be the first thing that will come to mind. That is assuming we have put our house together and everything is in tandem. The first national
Okay, so you're actually picking economic interest as the first, and that's quite important, because economic interest will actually be able to create jobs and so many other things, which will serve as an incentive for people not to join or to be criminally minded, or to constitute part of this
non-military threats, which
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll go to Ibrahim Kuku now. What in your opinion should be at the front burner when Nigeria is looking at national security?
Okay, thank you very much. So the front burner, as I have rightly said earlier on during the introduction, we have core or vital interest, national interest, and one of it, Julius alluded to it earlier on, that has to do with national survival. You know, the protection of national territorial integrity, the protection of lives and assets, economic resources, democracy, even culture, almost even diversity. And that's the reason why we have the federal character. So that's one core interest that we have. Then there are, as I said the other time, you have also the strategic interest. There you have the not so important interest that where you have in terms of political affiliations, having people to affiliate, diplomatic relations with other nations, you know, regional security is another one that you know, even terrorism is one, you know, is another interest in Nigeria. Insurgency, we have all of them that are there. International crimes in terms of this entry and out of drugs, with the other peripheries that have to do with
on the front burner
is the national survival. On the front burner is the national survival, protection of lives and properties, and economic resources like the pipelines, you know, protection of pipelines, the culture and diversity of Nigerians. These are the front burner that we have, Nigeria has in terms of.
Okay, so you are actually like adding or agreeing with Julius that the economy is actually key to, at this moment, in the present circumstances that we find ourselves, the economy is key. So whatever efforts we're supposed to put as a nation, we're supposed to put the economic survival of this country as key, whether in dealing within the country or also with the external environment. Aminu, can you also give us your perspective on this?
Yes.
For those that are listening, if you want to contribute, you can also call. You can call. There's a number that is scrolling on your screen, 081-888-34354. You can call to put your views on what we have discussed so far, as we're coming close to the end of the discussion. So, Aminu, you can go ahead.
Yes. There's no gainsaying that virtually all military threats that is bedeviling our country now is as the result of long neglect of those non-military threats, or because we don't look at all those non-military threats over time to be of security concern. So we allow them to linger for too long that they became a basis for people to vent their anger. And that is what has transformed into all the military threats we see around, which is very expensive to manage at this point. But maybe if we have addressed the ferry, then, like what is our healthcare, we put them in perfect shape with little resources. Everybody, not like the NHIS we have now that is restricted to a particular number. A good number of people are not captured in the NHIS. That healthcare, qualitative and affordable healthcare for practically everybody, education for everybody. I repeat, no educated person. In fact, if you are given an opportunity to choose which criminal, which bandit you want to kidnap you, you will, I'm very sure a good number of us will subscribe to being kidnapped by an educated bandit. Because an educated bandit will come to the business of banditry with a goal in mind, to make money, not to kill for just killing sake, not to rape for just raping sake. Maybe he is pushed into it by some of these underlying factors, non-military threat we are talking about. So I think I will have to align myself with them, with the previous speakers, that if the economy is strong enough, all other things will fall in place. It will address poverty. It will check health security like pandemics and epidemics. It will address maritime crimes. It will address environmental security like flood, like all form of environmental degradation. For instance, the perennial fuel scarcity we are experiencing in the country. And since the inception of this administration, it became a thing of the past. People were celebrating. But recently, we just heard that flood in Lokoja caused a temporal hitch in the distribution chain. And that temporal hitch has almost come to stay with us now. For over a month now, there is, in every part of this country, you have one form of, it's either people are selling at unregulated prices, or you go to government regulated prices with very, very, very long queues, unfortunately.
So
you see,
Hello?
Yeah.
you see, checking
Can I
all
add
those
something
military
So-
here?
Yeah. Okay. So,
add
Julius, before you come in, I want us to
Yes.
to do the final the wrap ups in the context of within the country, within the West African sub-region
Yeah,
and
that
our
is why
neighbors.
just before you do the wrap up, just give me 1 minute to say something. Just 1 minute.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, you see, we are glossing over some issues when it comes to security, the non-tangible issues. You see, this economic issue is though tangible. Every other aspect, even prosecuting the military threat set, depends on the economy. Now, I'm talking of intangible issues. Equity and fairness. access to justice, not justice based on the highest bidder. You see, it is obvious that when people cannot get justice from the state or from the institution of the state, they look for alternative justice. When people are aggrieved and they do not have the proper response from the authorities who are supposed to respond, the tendency for them is to take some other measures in order to get what they want. And that is why we have been experiencing armed groups and the rest of them. I just thought I should bring it in before you round up.
Oh, okay. That's great. So I think you're touching already on some of the aspects that I was actually looking at. So you have now looked at the internal aspect of our national interest, that we should try by all means to ensure that justice is at the front burner, and that we should not give people the impetus to find justice by themselves. So that is within the national context. I have a call here. I don't know whether it's related to this. Let me just pick it to see whether it's it's dropped already. Okay, so we've talked about economy within the nation. We've talked about a sense of justice within the nation also. So within our nation, okay, a moment, please. Hello? Yeah, are you part of our stream? Yeah, do you want to contribute? Okay, please let me put you on speakerphone so that you can talk. So I have Mr. Benson Taiwo here.
Yes.
Yeah. So please go ahead.
Yes. All of you have been very wonderful in your perspectives on this issue of security or insecurity. You see, every insecurity there is a basis. You see, the other day when we talked about the Japa syndrome and all of that, there are a lot of issues associated with these movements, ranging from marginalization, economic, survival things, and all of that. And until, and when we talk of national interest, you know, almost all of you agree, it should be all-encompassing. You must have a national interest. Every tick and Harry must be associated with it. Get the people involved. And remember the criticism about, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we are hearing you.
So, you see the criticism associated with this issue, or whether there is a validity in a thing called mass. You know, many philosophers, or if you like, came up with their personal views that there is nothing in nationality because of the myriad of, if you like, the various interests associated with the nation. People from diverse, backgrounds. What affects this person does not affect this other person. So how you want to have a national interest with all of these things? So you must have everybody involved in whatever has to do with the so-called national interest. Otherwise, it will be personal. And of course, it also have come by many governments have used national interest to mean personal interest. And you interpret national interest as it appeals to you. And as you are leaving the government, another person comes in, he interprets national interest the way he or she likes, just because of corruption. The long and short of what is in this thing we are talking security is corruption. When everybody is brought to the table, everybody's interest is addressed, I know it's not possible to address everybody's interest, but if you can address 90%, which many nations have done, and they're moving on to this. And why ours in reverse? So you guys are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your call. Yeah. So I think Mr. Benson just agreed with many of the perspectives that we have discussed so far. He's looking at what we need to do to even provide that kind of sense of belonging within the country. Also, he talked about the issue of how do we create that national vision from all the various nations that we have within the country, and that we need to see how we can look for interests that will take care of the aspirations of a lot of Nigerians within this, the region, so that we can do that. But there's one thing that we have not talked about, which is we've talked mainly about. I think we should be rounding up in a few minutes now. However, we've not talked about the ECOWAS sub-region. I just want us to use like a few minutes to talk about the ECOWAS sub-region, because the non-state actors, especially the Boko Haram, we also have some cartels, drug smuggling cartels that that cut across the countries, that move weapons from one country within the West African sub-region to especially Nigeria, and which is also increasing to the level of insecurity within Nigeria. What elements of our national security should we put in line with that? I'll start with Coco. Coco, are you online?
So, thank you very much. I was initially having a broader perspective as to where the ECOWAS sub-region will come. I was talking about the regional component of what we need to consider in terms of tackling security. We have talked about the global environment, the regional environment, and then the domestic environment. So the ECOWAS sub-region falls under this ECOWAS sub-region. So you can see the element, the main feature. If you look at the Africa, as it were, I think is the main focus of Nigeria's foreign policy. If we look at, over the history, with regards to that, they continue to provide partnership to minimize crisis, violent extremism and conflicts, wars, prevent sporadic military interventions, and then deal with poor governance that is happening within Africa. Because if there's poor governance, there's going to be a pervasive poverty happening everything. And when people are hungry, they become hostile, and when they are on, anything follow. Well, by the time you bring drugs, you give them arms, through those borders. Then the other thing has to do with the movement of arms, these light arms, because of our porous border. And we have a very, very big issue with the porous border in terms of having, because our borders are actually having communities that share common ethno-linguistic and religious affinities, so that transcend this demarcation. So by the time you have people, you won't know who is a Nigerian, who is a Nigerian. So these communities, they still maintain this border ethnic and family ties. People move together, and so there has to be partnership. We have to move from the information of intelligence gathering to intelligence sharing, so that Nigerians and the border countries will be able to tackle these situations. And this has to be very, very more deliberate. So Nigeria has been at the full part of that cross-border infiltration of arms and contraband of goods. So in terms of West Africa, there has to be that synergy. OAU, ECOWAS, economic community, we need to come together and to harness, create this border security guards, equip them. We need funds to be able to do that. We need to tackle that from that perspective in terms of providing jobs, so that those borders would not to move. Then we have to collaborate with international communities where we have the sources of these arms and ammunition coming to Africa. You know, if they are coming, we don't produce them. They come from them, and you see them made in from whichever country they are coming. So there has to be that collaboration to be able to tackle this situation. And African leaders must come together to make sure that we move together, we salvage our collective interests, then we remain peaceful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think I'll go to Julius now. What's your perspective on the West African regional security, the way they affect us? What should our national interest perspective look at within the ECOWAS sub-region? Julius, that's you. Oh, Julius doesn't seem to be hearing us at the moment.
Okay, I think.
Okay, so Aminu, I'll go to you lastly.
Thank you very much, the moderator, Mr. Datun. Kuku has practically said everything. Our national interests as regards cross-border crime, criminality, security in Africa is to put Africa first. What affects your neighbor, you take it as your problem. Let me give you an example. The fall of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi's Libya, exacerbated crime and criminalities in African countries because some of the machineries that Muammar Gaddafi uses for his expansionism, as in expanding territory and protecting his territory, these guys, at the fall of their leader, they became jobless. But don't forget, they have expertise in the act of warfare, and that is what they know and do. And they are equipped with those, because a lot of the armories were broken into. So that's after the fall of Muammar Gaddafi's Libya, we saw an upsurge in proliferation of arms and ammunition across borders in Africa. And most of them were coming towards our end here. Reason simple, because we already have an existential problem, security problem. The Boko Haram were already giving us small pocket of problems. The IPOP, some agitators here and there, and the bandits here in the northwest feel also the feeling of being shortchanged. You have instances where a header moving in search of greener pasture with his herd of cows moving from the north to the south, or coming from Mali to graze in southern Nigeria, the next thing his cow enters, trespass into a farmland, destroy properties of, let's say, 50,000 naira. But he will end, because of poor criminal justice system, he will end up between the police station okay, between the chain starts from the local chiefs to the police station to the local courts there. They will end up selling 10, 20 cows to settle that matter. So over time, then activities of local militias who also attack them because they only have cutlasses and sticks. They attack them, cut away, rustle their cows. So over time,
Yeah.
these guys now, and also the activities of some elites who have cows. They buy cows for them to help them.
Yeah, but you're talking more of the internal one.
Yes.
We are looking at the
Okay.
our relationship with the West
do you-
African within the
do you
West
know-
African
Do
sub-region.
you know the nexus
And-
I'm trying to draw there? I'm
Okay.
trying to tell you that when those people coming from Libya with expertise in warfare and arms in their possession meet local people that are already agitated by the system they feel has not protected their interests. So you see, these two people, this man he has the expertise. He needs to be employed. He needs to go back to business. Then this person has a problem with the system. So you see, now they have a common enemy. So they collaborate, and that is what have generated this so much insecurity in the land. So you
Yeah.
see,
So if
our
we are to
national
build
interest-
if we were to build some kind of national interest around the situation within the
Yes,
ECOWAS region, what do you think
Africa-
should be on the front burner for us?
Africa should be our centerpiece of security, peace, and security in Africa should be the centerpiece of our foreign policy. We should be our brothers giver. Any problem in one, if African head of states, presidents then have rallied round Gaddafi and protected him to the latter, these things might not have gotten to this point. That is my point. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I think Julius had talked about West Africa already. I think now I think the last sphere of our security and defense is the international community, which is affected mostly by globalization. The price of bread now has increased exorbitantly because of the war in Ukraine. It sounds very, very odd that the war in Ukraine will increase the price of bread in Nigeria. So globalization has really changed a lot of things. And so what should we do? What should we do within the international community? So I take Julius. Julius, can you hear me? You're speaking, but we are not hearing you. Okay, while you fix your issue with the mic, your mic is muted or something like that. While you fix your issue with your mic, I will take Ibrahim Kuku. What should be our national interest in relating with the international community, looking at what globalization has meant to us in the world of today?
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, great. So I think every country has its interest, and if we are going to waste our time on how we are going to relate with them, it's not going to change their own interest. It's what we do to be able to create that national homogeneous national interest for all Nigerians, since we are having a nation state. Now, I think the whole thing, we have to go back to the basics and look at our elements of national interest. What are they? Number one is our history. Where are we coming from? What do we stand for? We need to recreate our values. What are our value system? What do we stand for? You know, we need to achieve national consensus based on this nation state that we have. And how do you achieve national consensus? We have to be able to harness this, our cultural diversity. And how do you diversity in terms of culture, you know, for you to have a consensus, it has to be consistent, you know, and the consistent, it has to be the intensity, the drive for it has to be very, very high to have that consensus. And if you have that consensus, we have predictability. Even nations will be able to predict us, you know, and we'll be able to do the right thing at the right time. And that can be clearly explained when we have national emergencies. You know, the type of national emergency you have, a 9/11 attack in the United States, the whole world stood still because of what America. All international airports stood. But in Nigeria, you have a national emergency, they will say, okay, it's your region or it's your state, you know, and that's not the kind of thing we want to have. So, and we need to put our acts together to be able to push on with this. And we need leadership. We're talking about it. If we have this area of number in terms of our history, I was made to understand, I think somehow this week, that history was deliberately removed from our curriculum, from our primary school to secondary school, so that our people will what? Forget their history. They don't even know where they are coming from. They don't know where they stand for. If you look at Russia today, Russia is rising through the minds of Putin, because Putin understood their history. He knew where they went from, and now look at where they are going to go. So we need to go back to that, and that's the only way we can do. Putin put his acts together, and he was able to what? Now he is a force to reckon with. And that's when, by the time you have those elements of the only thing that is pushing Putin today is that deterrence, because of the nukes he has. So you have to put your acts together. You need to go back and revisit the concept of even economic nationalism, as we were told, create a national priority indicators in terms of having a national reorientation, educational reintroduction of history into our school, develop a roadmap. So we need to do all those things to be open. There has to be self-reliance in terms of research and development, develop a national security architecture, robust that is supposed to what? Take up with it. But first, that national orientation, the citizen need to own it. There has to be a citizen-driven policy generation and architecture for us to be able to be there. We need to know our history. We need to come together and create a national identity, as I said, together. The issue of forgetting our diverse groups is not going to help us, but we need to come together to create a diversity. We have Nigerians in diaspora. They can push us towards creating that national identity, and we'll be able to move forward. For the, you know, once of time, I don't need to elaborate more.
I think you've said enough. Nigeria first, whatever we need to do, because other countries have their own national interests. So we don't expect that they will jettison theirs to support ours. As it said, normally in international relations, there is no morality. So it's you first, no matter what happens, even if the other country is dying, you are first, because you need to survive. Julius has a problem with his mic, so he actually called in to speak on this last aspect of the talk. Julius, you can talk, please.
In fact, Fuku has
it's echoing. It's echoing. You need to off one of it. It's echoing.
Don't worry, I've muted him. Go ahead.
Nobody is going to help you out in the international community. There might be collaborations here and there, but even in that collaboration, it is based on the interests of the nations who are collaborating. No nation will collaborate with you if you have nothing to offer. So, in the international arena, it is done. You go out to grab the most that you can.
Something is interfering. We can't hear him. It's just
yes, it's there is a lot of echo. There's a lot of echo in what you're talking about. Yeah,
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I think it's better. Go ahead.
Okay. I am saying that in the international community, nobody is going to help you out. That even if where there are collaborations, that collaborations are based on interests, and that unless you have anything to bring to the table likely to get anything out of any collaboration. Having said that, this globalization, the free flow of people, goods, and services, I think it has helped some nations when it comes to international trade and others. But I cannot say the same for Africa. In fact, I cannot say the same for Nigeria. And I am one of the people that believe that this ECOWAS protocol of free movement should be revisited. It should be revisited because it happens to be one of the things of our problems concerning our borders. We have not been able to put mechanisms in place to effectively monitor our borders. And here is the protocol saying that everybody is free to come in and go out. So I think I'm one of those that believe that that provision should be revisited. Thank you.
So thank you so much. I think we've done a lot of justice to the topic in question. We've talked from the definition of a nation, definition of a nation state, and how Nigeria can be a nation state. I mean, a nation state and also a nation by building interests that are common to all of us. We've also looked at the national security environment, the ECOWAS region, and the international community to see how we can build our interest in such a way that we can derive the maximum benefit from our existence with the other nations. I wish to thank you all for your wonderful cooperation, your wonderful contributions to this topic. Personally, I have gained a lot from your discussions. You've shown expertise in on the topic itself, and I hope and pray that people that joined us during this conversation may find it very useful to apply them in one or two areas of their endeavors, advise government where necessary, so that we can build a nation that has an interest that is projected above every other national or subnational interest, so that we can have one national interest within the nation state called Nigeria, where all of us can protect for our survival in this globalized world. I thank everyone who joined us during this stream. We had a call, even though we don't have so much questions from the audiences. I hope that you people found this very useful. I also would like to thank StreamYard, who powered this studio for us to be able to do this broadcast. Thank you so much for all your attention. And I want to tell you, you should have a very wonderful night rest. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye on YouTube.